Hey, welcome to Loon Live. Tonight we're here at the Fly Shop in Redding, California. This guy next to me is Mike Mercer.
Yes, I am.
Probably have heard of him. So Mike is going to tie a few patterns, some of your...
Yeah, going to tie a missing link tonight, the dry fly, emerger dry, and then also a little Twisto Nymph, a new pattern. So
Cool. I'm going to let Mike jump in the hot seat over here. We'll zoom in and get started. Let's see here. So what are you going to tie first, Mike?
first I'm going to do the missing link. It's been around a little longer than other patterns, but it's easily my favorite dry fly. I tell people I literally probably fish it 75% of the time. Anytime I have a dry fly of any sort on my leader, it's a missing link. It's just been an amazing little pattern. So yeah, and I would say about the missing link, people that know my history of tying flies and stuff would probably be surprised to hear that I believe it's possible to over-design a fly. All my flies with 32 steps, but it is possible. And what I always tell people, I guess, is that I really feel that anytime you sit down to design a fly, allow yourself maybe 75% designing and trigger features and that sort of thing. But leave 25% just for intuition, just saying, God, something's different, what is it? And mess around with things. And when I tied the missing link the first time, I tied it as a dead caddis pattern. That's all I wanted. I wanted a pattern for the lower sac where, you know, I had a lot of evenings out there where fish weren't eating emergers, or they were eating some emergers and some dead and dying egg layers. And so I just want to tie a dead caddis and see if it works. And what happened, as I tied it, I used some more standard techniques and some things I just kind of winged it. And it turned out to be just a really amazing all-around dry flies for caddis and mayflies, and it seems good for just about any life stage of almost any insect, actually. And so it was kind of a fluke, but I'll take it. So I'll start with
With all honesty, it's probably one of the only dries that I carry anymore.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Me too. Literally, it's about all I fish dry fly wise, and I've been really excited that it's been very, very effective on very tough fisheries. The Henry's Fork, the Delaware, really tough places to fish. A lot of my guide friends say that's my money fly, which is very encouraging and humbling. Anyway, I tied it with a 102Y, TMC 102Y, and I like that hook. Not because it's black. People say, oh, you like the black hook? I said, I could care less what color it is. I just love the way it's a pretty fine wire, large gape hook. It hooks fish very well, slides in easy. I just think it's a great hook for a lot of things. I've used it for nymphs and mini flies, but it's not a fly I use for nymphs on big water, where the fish can take advantage of its light weight, but for dries, it's really good. So anyway, I'll start. I use Unithread 8/0 brown camel Unithread, and when I was designing yes, I'm old school.
There's people saying that you sound more professional than me.
They don't know me. But when I designed this pattern, I wanted it to be very, very sparse, because what I saw, the dead caddis, there's not much left. They're very desiccated. So I wanted it to be really slim, but I wanted the abdomen to sit down in the water, and I wanted to have some shine and some look of a little bit of depth, like it had a little bit of substance to it. So I used just the tying thread, and you notice I brought it clear back to the bend of the hook, then back forward, just once back, once forward. No bulk of thread, really. And then I'll just take a little bit of the Loon UV flow and put it on that and cover it. Doesn't take a lot. I want it to look, I don't want to be able to see the individual thread wraps. I want just enough bulk so that there's a little shine to it, and it has an illusion of translucency to it, maybe actually a little bit of translucency. Hit it with the light. And what you end up with is a product which kind of like, almost looks like it has, you know, some like a little body, like a desiccated little caddis body. Now, as it turns out, as I mentioned, it's also been really good for mayflies. I actually use this fly more for mayflies now than I do even caddis. So different. That was a surprise to me. And you notice too, and the whole, as I tie this fly, I keep the materials, I'm going to leave myself a lot of space up near the head. I first started tying a lot of my mayfly patterns that way because Bob Quigley had a large influence on my fly tying. But with this fly, you need to leave a fair amount up front or it's really easy to crowd the eye and run out of space and run into problems. So the next step here is going to be just a little bit of dubbing. And the dubbing itself I use is the UV Ice Brown dub. And I love this color. Of all the ice dubs that I use this probably 50% of the time for all different kinds of flies. I just love the color. And the fish seem to also. But all I'm doing really here is just creating a little dubbing bump to act as a wing splitter. Those if you know the pattern, you know that one of the things that's kind of cool about it is it has both downwings and an upwing. And so it can imitate a lot of different life stages. It can be a spinner, a mayfly, it can be a dead caddis as I designed it, it can be an emerger, it can be a lot of different things. But for the downwings, I want a little bit of a dubbing split here, because if I just tie in the poly wings that you're going to see in a moment, if I don't have something to keep them out to the sides of the fly, they're going to fold together and it's not going to look like anything. What I use for the wing is typically Antron yarn, like a dark gray. Zelon's great too. It's not really that critical. I just don't use white. White is it's just too white. And you can't use too little. Usually what I'll take, and I'll pick out some fibers. The Antron starts with a large thick fiber, and then from that I'll just take and just keep taking less and less. About the time I think I've got it right, I'll split it in half one more time. And so you're going to have wings that are very sparse. And just you can see, just probably 10 fibers or so, not many at all. And I'm going to tie these in like spinner wings. So usually I'll fold them over the thread, bring them up right in front of that dubbing bump, and then wrap back over them, pushing them into the dubbing bump, and kind of teasing them down below the axis of the hook. I want these down in the water a little bit, not straight out to the sides. And another thing about keeping them down too is that when you go to tie your parachute hackle, it's going to be a lot nicer if you don't have these things getting caught in it. So I do kind of tease them down. Then I'll pull these wings back, and I'll tightly, and then I'll just a little bit beyond the bend of the hook shank, maybe 50% past that, I'll clip them. And so they give the appearance of being about as long as the back of the hook shank. Again, tease them down just a little bit.
Do you ever find yourself modifying this fly, like, on the river? Like, if you
yeah. You could clip the wings off or modify. You could. Actually, this is a good question. I never have. I'm such a tying geek. I think of it and I go home and tie it differently.
Right.
But yeah, that's probably actually a really smart idea. I've just never really thought of it. And so now I've got your down wings. I got the back body, the down wings. So now to create the upwing pattern, the upwing part of it, I'm going to use cow elk. And I didn't actually grab the pattern, but I like cow elk a lot. It's very coarse. It's got very blunt tips. It's got light colored tips, which is good. I like all of those things. I don't want a real fine hair for this. I don't use a lot of hair, but I want the hair that I use to be very buoyant. So I'll clip the hair and just grab it by the tips and just kind of flick out all the underfur. And I'll always start with more hair than I know I need, because in the process of stacking and stuff, I'll lose some. It's easier to take some out than add some later. So I'll go ahead and put it in the stacker. Give it a few little stacks.
Do you do anything special when you select your hair?
Other than being cow elk, I do like hair that's very golden tipped.
Okay.
The best hair I find for this fly is golden waxy tips.
Okay.
That's the stuff that's just kind of real light color at the end. I'm not as thrilled with it. I like that really golden. So it just seems to work the best. In fact, that's the hair I use for almost all my caddis patterns, period, and some of my mayflies. But this pattern, I like it. So I get about that amount of hair that I think I need. Take a look. It's going to be kind of like an elk hair, caddis wings, basically what we're tying. And you'll notice I'm still way back on the hook shank from the eye, and that's on purpose. It seems like, well, you're too far back, but in fact, not really so much. So I'll kind of measure it, and I want the hair to about the tips to about the bend of the hook. And there is just some bare hook shank here. That's fine. That's just kind of part of the deal. And got a couple of loose wraps, and then wrap forward and back over that empty hook shank. I'm actually forming a little bit of a thread space here. And the reason for that, basically, is that if I don't do that, what happens is if I just tie down in one little spot, when I go to clip the hair, I get hair, and then put the hackle on, I'll have hair that just basically sticks straight up. And a little bit of that, I do want it up, but it's a little too much. So I'll take all these blunt ends and just give some wraps underneath to kind of post them up a little bit. And I'm going to leave them long. I will eventually, of course, clip those, but just for the ease of tying, I'm going to leave those long. And I might take and pull my Antron wings down a little bit here as I see them kind of going along, and keep them out of my hair a little bit. And the next thing is hackle, and I'll be using a neck hackle, but it doesn't matter, neck or saddle is fine. I do like a dark blue dun. Matt's hopping, it doesn't matter, make a difference. But the dark blue dun I like that color. I actually started using it probably 10 years ago when I came up with this pattern, and I hadn't used it a lot before, and I have used it a lot more ever since, actually. So with the neck hackle, just prepare it as usual. Strip the fluff off the bottom, and clip a little bit leave a little bit at the end so I can tie in. I'll tie it in on the near side, and I'll tie it in on that little gap, that thread gap that I created when I tied the front and back parts of the wing. And make sure it's secured well. And then maybe a few more posts here. All right. Now I'm going to actually do the most challenging part of this whole fly is wrapping that parachute hackle, because it wants to catch the down wings. That's why I kind of preen those down wings downward first. So you can actually tape them down, stuff if you want. But so parachute around, and you'll notice as I parachute around, the upwing is going to stand. The yellow part of the upwing is going to stand right almost straight up, as do the blunt ends.
So we have a good question.
Yes.
Everybody else has been quiet. You've intimidated everybody.
No, hardly.
But Jake has a great question.
Yeah.
He goes, "How'd you come up with the name?"
Missing Link?
Yeah.
The name basically came about because it's the dead caddis is not something you see a lot of, and so I tied the fly for that. I thought, well, this is a cool fly. I was trying to come up with some clever name. And then I started catching fish on caddis emergences and mayfly emergences and mayfly spinnerfalls and ant falls and just all kinds of crazy stuff. And so I think that's kind of like this is a link between different insect emergences. It's kind of like the missing link, something I hadn't done before. A link between hatches and emergences and different insect styles. So
okay,
that's basically it. Good question, Jake.
Very cool.
So I tied the tip of the hackle down, and I'll just reach in there with my scissors.
Dan says that he loves that color.
The blue dun?
Yeah.
Or just everything? Yeah, that's cool.
Possibly everything.
Yeah, that's good. I do too, Dan.
How many different colors are you tying this in now?
It comes in the standard, which is the brown color, the color dark natural, the brown. Then I'll just whip finish underneath that hackle. And then there's a red, there's a yellow, that's called a PMD yellow, and there's a green drake. So there's those colors. I will tell you that Of all the colors, if I had only this dark brown, it suffices. But the other colors, sometimes the fish see the brown a lot. Sometimes, one of those other colors can be good. And I have a few real avid fans that swear by red. And some of the other colors are PMDs when the yellow when the PMDs are coming off. So
Bobby says we went from fly tying 1 to fly tying on steroids.
And I like you. That's good.
And Clark from Fly Fish Food says, Mike is the man.
I don't know about that. Strange man, maybe. So I'm going to go ahead and clip these blunt forward tips, get the scissors in there, and I want, I can leave a fair amount. The amount of blunt ends I leave in there will depend a little bit on how I'm going to fish this fly. For example, if I'm fishing a lower sack out here, and I know that there's some evenings out here in the lower sack where the fish are going to want this fly skated, where I can cast downstream. I'm anchored up in a run as fish are rising below me. I'll cast to the side of the fish and down. I'll skate it up, just raise my rod tip, skate it up, drop it, skate it up, drop it, skate it up, drop it. And if I leave this blunt ends long and heavy like this fly skates forever. For such a really kind of a frail looking fly, it's very durable and it'll skate like crazy. You don't have to have a lot of bulk with this style, but you leave those ends long. If I'm just going to do a spring creek pattern where I'm just going to want it sitting in the no skating, just dead drift, you can leave them a little shorter, but you don't have to. It doesn't really hurt to leave them long. And so that's it. That's the little missing link. It seems when I first submitted it to Umpqua, they said, that's interesting, Mike, because it looks like a piece of belly lint that I tied to the fly. There's not much to it. It doesn't really have the look, And trust me, guys, just fish this thing. And so it's really taken off. It's been just an awesome pattern, and I really do. I mean, I'm serious when I say that I fish it the vast majority of the time when I'm fishing dries. This is usually the guy that's on there. So just a little bit of flow to finish it off.
I know that we talked about this just briefly, like where we're setting up. Correct me if I'm wrong. Claire would like to know what hook size you used tonight.
Tonight I used a 13. It's a 102 Y's come in. Sorry, Claire, confuse you right off the bat. 102 Y's come in off sizes, so it's a 13. But I will tell you that I use the 17 for the vast majority of my fishing. It's the equivalent of a 16, and it's good. And the interesting thing about this fly, it seems to fish just get a sense of security about it. It's like they know it's food and they want to eat it. They're comfortable with it. And so I can often use a much larger version of it than, for example, I've often used it in blue winged olive hatches in a 16, or pseudoclowns that are 22s and 24s, and I'm using a 16 or an 18. They're 3 sizes too large, and they just gulp it, which is, for my aging eyes, is like the best. I will use it bigger when I can get away from it. I rarely fish this fly in a 20 or 22. Occasionally, if the fish are really touchy, I will, but usually an 18 is as small as I ever need to go, even for blue winged olives. And on caddis, I fish a lot of 14, 16s. In green drake, I use it in a 12. And I don't know, I'll use it in little yellow Sally hatches, all kinds of things. But you notice the wings, the down wings, you can see that the down wings are slightly down below the axis of the hook. Parachute, of course, is straight. So of course, what you get is like an emerger style cant, kind of like a not quite a clink hammer drop, but a very much of a back end of the fly down in the water and the front of the hook up. And I think that really accurately replicates an emerging mayfly. I think that's why this fly's been so good for me with mayflies. It just looks like an emerging mayfly on the water.
Not to shamelessly plug you.
Please do.
Is the missing link something that's featured in your book?
It is not. No.
Okay.
If there's another book, this one just came out after that book. So
Okay.
if I do another one, it'll definitely be there, and as will be the epoxy-back PMD nymph, which is one of my favorites that didn't quite make the cut on that book. But yeah, I've got a lot of new stuff I'd like to put if another book happens. So
cool. Yeah. A lot of people want to know. You have all the sizes of these here, obviously.
We do. All the sizes and colors in stock. Yep.
So Bobby, you can order them from the fly shop along with all the materials from tonight.
Everything's here. Yep.
We just went upstairs and
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all hair. So.
Grabbed it all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, why should I bring it from home, right?
Don't tell anyone.
So good. All right. Well, that's the missing link. Any other questions, or should I do the second? Or
Let's see. Oh. No, they want to know if I added on the pearl rib.
oh, I forgot to put on the pearl rib. There goes my reputation right down the line. That's a great question. And
It's all right. We botched the ice.
Yeah. Let me at least I'll explain the reason for that, because that was an important reason. And what I found with the Flashaboo rib is that when you covered with the little flow stuff, it creates a glowing kind of a segmentation that could be a dead caddis body. That's what I want it to be, but in fact it makes a perfect, just a beautiful emulation of a mayfly emergent, like a nymph. Looks like a mayfly nymph body. And so, sorry about that, guys.
It kind of plays into like your other philosophy with like your epoxy back. When you originated that, you have that.
The Flashaboo rib, exactly.
Yeah, we were talking about it the other day where you have like light, flat, light, dark, light, dark.
Yeah.
There's something to entice them.
Right. With the golden stones, so with the dark back and the gold underneath, they see that flash. Because nymphs don't just swim straight line down the water. They tumble and flow, and fish are used to catching little glimpses of what they perceive to be life, as opposed to a twig rolling that they see has no life. And so a little bit of Flashaboo helps create that kind of illusion of life. It looks like trapped air bubbles, that sort of thing. So I'm sure this fly will work as it is, but not as good as with the Flashaboo rib. So great question.
Yeah, they don't miss much.
No, I can
and
tell.
they're being like really nice to you.
Yeah, we probably should have done a cold run on this first. But I really encourage people to use this everything. I mean, I've used this. I mean, when you think about how many times I grew up guiding and fishing on Hack Creek and Fall River, and those are tough fish, but even more than tough fish, you have situations with a lot of masking hatches in those rivers where you still look, it's a PMD hatch, and you go out there and fish your PMD and you get squat. You go, what in the world? And then you look, and sure enough, there's a little blue-winged olive hatch that's 3 sizes smaller, a little pseudoclone coming off, and that's what they're really eating. And so when you have a fly like this, it imitates a little bit of everything and kind of instills that confidence in them that it's alive and it's something they want to eat. It's a great equalizer. You can use it for the toughest fish, for the stupidest fish, but it's a great fly when you have a difficult fisheries that where you do find masking hatches. Henry's Fork, perfect example. Yeah, the lower sack happens a lot out here. People don't realize that, but how many times we've been out there and in an evening and you see there's just caddis blanketing the water, and you cast and cast and cast and nothing, and then you take a net and you look, oh, there's PMD spinners on the water. Huh. Change to a PMD spinner, boom! And out here, that's why the missing link is so good, because it's equally good for both of those. And those are the 2 big bugs out here. Also for the little yellow sally, it's very good. And so, yeah, and it's worked well for me in midges. I've used an 18 when fish were eating 22, 24 midges, just gulped it. It's just a confidence fly. I remember using my early days, I'd go fish the Henry's Fork and stuff, and my confidence flies was Harrop's little, or the no hackle. And it was a bummer because the fly just shredded the first fish you caught, but I could catch any fish with that fly. So it's like, oh, my confidence fly, I'll just buy 10 of them, and bite the bullet. So it's been nice to come with a fly that will do the same thing but hold together and last for many fish.
Clark says that they use this a ton in Utah, and it's
a
great pattern. And then
awesome.
Bill actually has a great question. With all that deer hair, and especially maybe this way versus like the commercially way it's tied.
Right.
How do you feel about running a dropper off of it? Like if you had caddis and maybe a Baetis hatch somehow,
right.
Whatever it might be.
Yeah, it's the way you see it tied is the way I tie it, with about that much hair. If I know I'm going to use it for a hopper drop or a dry dropper rig, I'll add about 50% more hair. Okay. This will hold up an 18 Baetis nymph with a little small brass bead. It'll hold it up.
Would you say like a Mercer's micro maybe?
Yeah, maybe. Well, it's kind of a big bead on that way, but yeah, exactly. That's sort of fly, but small. Nothing more than an 18. And so yeah. But if I tie it with 50% more hair, it'll hold a 16 up. And so, but it's not a fly I do a lot of that with, honestly.
Okay.
I rarely do that. It's more of a hatch matcher.
Very cool.
So,
I'm sure we'll have more. Dan
Questions
says it
come up.
looks very buoyant.
yeah, it is. With the way the wing is tied, it is very buoyant, more than you'd think for a fairly frail-looking fly.
So when you told me about that fly, I searched out and like not for something that's works as everything like as the Missing Link does.
Right.
Like for that caddis, and I've been tying like some dead caddises and fishing them in our back eddies and
Sure.
stuff like that at night, and it's been like
Oh, the fish eat those things. There's
you get the biggest fish and they're like incredibly. They go all of a sudden that last like 45 minutes. Of the day, they just go dumb.
you can hook everyone.
Yeah.
Just put it on them.
Super fun.
And it's cool because for 30 years I've been fishing this river. Until I came with the Missing Link, I had a lot of action where one night I'd be a hero and I'd catch 10 big trout. The next night I got skunked. Same fly, same fish, same. It's like, what's going on? And then I finally realized, they're eating a lot of dead caddis out there. And that's been, whether it's this fly or another one, it is an important kind of a thing to realize out here. So, all right, my second fly is called a Twisto Nymph, and it's a much newer pattern. We've only had it here in the shop for about a year or so, and I tie it generally on a 2499 SPL B Tiemco. As with almost all my nymphs anymore, I really prefer tungsten beads because I really don't prefer split shot. It's funny, when Mom my guiding years ago, and for many years after, I was a split shot junkie. I mean, I put 6 inches of split shot on there, and somewhere along the way, I got older and I started getting arthritis in my neck, and it's like, this isn't working so well anymore. And when I started going to tungsten beads and no split shot, I started realizing I'm getting a much better drift, and I'm catching a lot more fish. Even if I'm not quite as deep, they'll move for it. And the tungsten allows me to not have to mess with putting so much on the leader, or even putting more weight on the hook shank, which affects the profile of the fly. And tungsten for me has been a game changer. I really like it. Brass is good; it works really well. But given a choice, I will use tungsten 90% of the time. So this is an extended body nymph, and the way it came about basically was that a couple years ago we got John Romer, who's an amazing dubbing artist. He comes up with so much. He came up with this product called Diamond Dub. And I saw it when it first came into the shop. I saw it and I thought, that's interesting. Another dubbing, John. That's great. Just what I need, But I looked at it, I was like, hey, those are cool colors. I looked at it, and the colors he came up with are superb. I thought some of the best colors I've ever seen in any dubbing. And I thought, this is going to be awesome. A whole bunch of little nymphs and stuff. And I pulled some out of the bag, and it's like, oh man, bummer. It's long fibered. It's like, I can't tie little tiny nymphs with this stuff. It's long fibered, and it just creates too much bulk. I can't get the real tapered bodies I want. And so I'm just kind of playing with it, in my hands, and kind of thinking, long fibers, what am I going to do with that? I said, I wonder, well, maybe I could dub some a little bit on the hook. So I just, as I always do with new dubbing, I thought, well, I'll just kind of furl it and twist one way with one hand and the other way with the other hand, and create a kind of like a little furled body and let it twist back on itself. And so I did that, and I looked, I said, wait, that looks pretty cool. That's a good color. I like the way it has a lot of flash in it when I do that, and it's got some spikiness, which if you like hare's ears, you gotta love that. And I like that. That's a cool looking dubbing. I can do that. And I was sitting there looking, and I was like, why wouldn't I just tie it on like that? I thought, no, that's not going to work. It's just the first fish is going to blow it off. It's just going to chew it right off there. You can't do that without a core. I said, well, okay, I'll do it a thread core. And I thought, well, wait a second. Why do I need a core? That's just because that's what everyone does. Is like, this is a long fiber dubbing. With a long fiber dubbing, you've got a lot of structural integrity that goes throughout the entire length of this little furled body, because there's different lengths. There's long fibers, shorter fibers. And so actually I don't need a core. And the only reason that's important is because when I tie this in and it gets wet, it gets water weight and swims. If you've got a core, it wants to hold in position and it keeps it stiffer, which isn't always bad, but it swims so cool when it doesn't have anything but just the dubbing itself. No core to stiffen it up. And so that's how I first started. I didn't think about the whole fly. I just thought, hey, that's cool. I could tie flies just with that.
One thing you touched on as you were talking about getting those bodies super tight, narrow bodies.
Right.
A lot of people like look at you like you're crazy
Uh-huh.
when you take super fine dry fly dubbing to your nymph.
Yeah.
And then they, you know.
Yeah. It's like, that's dry fly dubbing.
Right. So that was
I like to think outside the box. I mean, I'm gifted. I'm so blessed to work at a fly shop. I see all the stuff. So I go look through it, pour through it, like, what's this? And I try to keep an open mind. It's like, just because it was meant for one thing doesn't mean that it might actually be better for something else. Because guys creating the materials have something in mind, and they create something, the best product they can for that purpose. But often they don't see something else that I might see that's like, whoa, that's an amazing nymph dubbing, even though it says dry fly dubbing, or whatever it may be. So I do encourage tyers to really think outside the box and look at materials with an open mind, not just, well, I need a dry fly dubbing, so I'll get some dry fly dubbing. Sometimes nymph dubbing makes a great dry fly dubbing because it's more porous, it'll hang down in the water, it'll pull the fly down, and the fish will see more of the body. It looks more like an actual bug trapped in the meniscus. And so there's times when you don't really want that pre-treated dry fly dubbing. It's not the best. It's really part of the attraction of designing flies to me is that just looking at different materials with not a jaundiced eye or a too practice of an eye, but just like, what can I use this for? And one thing I'll tell you too that I'll mention to you guys out there is that everyone knows my flies have a lot of steps. This is the simplest fly I've ever designed. This
I was surprised by this.
Yeah. It's like people are like, man, Mike, that's not really yours, is it? Matt tied that for you and said you can have this one. That's what you said. And I said, no, it's just. But one thing I've discovered with steps is that there's kind of a reverse necessity process I'll do with a lot of new flies, and I'll tie it first the way I want it, with 23 steps, triggering steps in it, with 13 different kinds of dubbing, and I just love that. I'm kind of creepy that way. But then I'll go out and I'll fish it, and usually it fishes really well. And then I'll say, okay, for the normal guy who doesn't want 33 steps in the size 18 dry fly, what can this fly? How will it fish just as well with what can I take away from it? And so I'll start taking stuff away. And what I found is that usually when I take steps away that take bulk away, I do well. If I have a nice, not bulky but nice tapered dubbing body, sometimes I can just substitute a thread body and boom, I got a better fly. So I'll never get away from a lot of steps in my flies. I believe that I design them in, but I do test them. I do go through and say, okay, this is ridiculous, isn't it? I can take this out, and it works just as well. But invariably, somewhere along the process, I'll be fishing, and suddenly the fly doesn't work so well anymore. And it's like, all right, then I guess I needed those wings or whatever it may be. Or I needed, and very often in nymphs, it'll be contrast. I need a little bit of color contrast. Or in the case of this Romer's dubbing, this diamond dub, I need a dubbing that's not just homogeneous in color. I need a dubbing that has 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 colors all blended together. I'm a huge believer in that. And sometimes I'll design in just a dark band in the dubbing, like olive dubbing with a dark brown band, just stuck in there for no particular reason. And sometimes that contrast gives that illusion of life. It's like, oh yeah, the stick doesn't look like that. And they'll say, I've seen the fish look. I'm giving them a lot of credit, but I've seen something like that. That looks like life. I'm going to try that. And of course, they don't have hands, so they got to put it in their mouth. It's like, oh no, and it's too late. And that's why
especially if you're fishing.
Especially if I got this Timco hooks they're just brutally effective.
Bill brought up a cool point.
Mm-hmm.
Clark says Romer's a dubbing wizard.
He is a dubbing wizard. I've never seen anything like him.
Dan says that you're very creative.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.
Which I would agree with. And he asked, Bill says something about using the mega semi-seal.
Oh yeah.
If you've ever furled, have you ever furled that for other patterns?
I have. I think you've done that, and I think I've done it for trout flies. I have a hard time capturing really exacting proportions in trout flies with it. It's great. It's got that sheen. It's got translucency. It's got a lot of things that can work really well. And on larger nymphs, it's awesome. On smaller nymphs, 14s, 16s, 18s, I have trouble getting proportions really well manicured. So, but you've used it though, right?
Yeah.
To some extent, yeah. It's like
different stuff.
Yeah. So really different stuff. So anyway, so I created that little furled body, and I brought my thread back to just about the point where there's, I mean, it's a curved shank hook, so it never stops curving, but about the point where my thread hangs down halfway between where the barb would be and the point. And then I'll just tie in this little extended body, and I'll tell you that it's better to have it too short than too long, but not, it's too short, then you lose all the motion in it. But basically about a hook shank length is what I'm looking at. So when I tie this thing down, it's going to be about the same length as the hook shank. And what I find is if it gets too long, it will be a little more susceptible to popping off. You know, you get wet and the fibers start loosening up, and usually it's not a fish that pops it off. It's usually you've landed a fish, you kind of pre-knit your fingers, getting ready for the next fish, and pop, it comes off. It's like, oh no. But if you keep it about hook shank length, about this ratio-wise, about this length, it usually has plenty of long fibers, which are going to keep the structural integrity of the fly. And there's always a lot of crazy stuff hanging out with a lot of little crazy, but I like that. I like little stuff popping out like that. Not crazy,
it totally plays on bird's nest.
Yeah, exactly. All those things.
It's just super suggestive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of different things. And with this style of an extended body too, when it gets wet, it holds water and looks very translucent. And boy, Romer's dubbing is fantastic for that. Always has been. But this is maybe better than ever. This perfect blend of the sparkle in there and the kind of the model color creation. Some spikier, some softer fibers. It's like for nymphs, it's hard to beat. It's amazing dubbing.
Then you're still using the 8/0 camel.
Still, I use 8/0 camel for about 50% of my flies. Period, across the board. I've always got some there, and it's like if I'm trying to really light colored fly, I'll go to a light colored thread. But camel is just like such a perfect all around color, or whatever thread you use. Try to get that dark tan color. I use it a lot, and I find that it's just perfect for a lot of stuff.
So I got asked that question during our 101 series.
Oh, okay.
And guys are like, what thread do you use?
Oh, okay.
And right now my flavor of thread is a white Vivus 50D GSP.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah.
Because I have these things called Sharpies.
You can color whatever color you want.
Right.
Exactly,
So,
yeah, right.
But
I'm basically lazy. I don't want to do that, but it's a great idea. And plus, I get half the stuff for free, so I don't care. I just get 10 different colors. So basically with the Twisto, I've created that's the money part of the fly. The rest is all very straightforward, nothing really fancy. But that is it. That's the thing that's going to wiggle when it gets wet. It wiggles so easily and freely. And if you guys that know that little fly called the Peaches and Cream, it's just a little jig fly with a very simple little like wood duck out the back, a dub body, and a bead. That's it. Nothing. To me, it's quite offensive, but it's too few steps. But I do, if I just have to catch a fish in a lower sack, I'll put one on because it's deadly effective.
Hogan and I had that same conversation. I kept sending him these pictures of like these European jig nymphs.
Yeah.
It's like mallard tail.
So straightforward.
This thread, maybe a black dot.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Like, caught him on this day. He's like, I hate your fly.
Your fly sucks. But you look at that fly, and in some ways, it's a much easier version of this. That wood duck will swim when it gets wet in the water a little bit, and it looks so crude to me, but it catches fish like nobody's business. So that's the part of it. Just that I could do that too, but I don't want to. That's not fun for me.
Right.
I want to create and have a bunch of steps, some of which are probably not necessary, and
of course,
and have a finished result that catches fish and makes me happy.
Claire asked a great question.
Yeah,
and she goes, "How many sizes and colors do you tie this in?"
The Twisto, I tie it down to 18s very comfortably. 20 is as small as I'll go because I have a hard time getting a furled body that's really good and nice proportion any smaller than a 20. I usually stop at 18s. Use a lot of 16s, a lot of 14s. And I've used it. I've tried it for like golden stones and stuff like that. Okay. And it works really well. But the structural integrity of the body starts to wane a little bit.
With that length.
Exactly.
So like an October caddis version.
You could do, yeah.
That's right on the cusp.
On the cusp, exactly, okay. Yeah. And I've tied that one, and it looks so good in the water, and it fishes really well. You will lose some though.
Same dubbing.
Same dubbing, different color. Yeah.
Rumber October Caddis.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got that really cool pale.
Oh, you look and every one of them has multiple colors in there. It's got dark and it's got light. It's just exactly what you want and what I want in a dubbing. So yeah, so realistically, I usually top out about a size 10.
Okay.
That's about as big as I feel I can go safely without. But I've tied a salmon fly version that was a killer. It's like one fish a fly, you know. But it looks super cool.
Was that a play to get better royalties?
Yeah, exactly. I don't design, I design such complicated flies because I don't want anybody to actually tie them. I want them to buy them.
No.
But no, that's a great question, and the best part of this fly is 12s, 14s, 16s, 18s. So then I'll just a simple dub body, same exact dubbing, and just pinch dub on what I need, and just want to kind of match the diameter of the extended body closely as I work my way down here. And I want it a little bit loose as I dub. I don't want it, too tight. I want there to be some hairiness to it.
Rick asked if you put a couple wraps under the body.
No, I don't. I've tried. It's a good question. I've tried that. I don't like it. I don't think for me. It's not a natural. When I don't have a problem with. If I keep the body this length, I don't have a problem with it loopy wrapping on the hook.
It's not going to foul.
It's not going to foul, right? And that would be a great thing if it did foul. I find if I put it underneath, it keeps it up too much of a natural angle, even if it's only slightly that much, and I don't want that. If anything, I want this to come straight out. I don't mind if it comes a little bit down, but I don't want it to hurt the ability of that tail to wiggle in all directions. And if I put a little something underneath it, then it can't go down. It's kind of like, just always wants to kick up. And that's all right, but I want it to be able to just do crazy stuff in the water.
Right.
And then this fly's going to flip over, and it's going to want to move all directions. So just a simple dub body, create a little bit of taper. Next, I'm going to use some English grouse, and I happen to have some on a wing here. But honestly, you can just buy a package. It doesn't matter, whatever you want. Either way. But the thing I like about English grouse is that it's got kind of a really beautiful dark amber color to it. And it's got a very beautifully speckled feathers, which I really like speckled. Huge partridge fan because of the speckled feathers. Hiddenbacks can be great, but if they're like a flat color, they're not great.
So you would totally be okay if somebody couldn't find English grouse at their local shop to go and get one of those really killer India henbacks.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It works just exactly the same. But find one that's speckled.
Right.
Yeah, don't get a flat color.
Right.
And so basically I just, there's many ways you could tie legs in. I'm kind of old school. A lot of guys would take and clip in the feather and lay it in. But the problem I have with that is that very often I get legs that are uneven when I do that. Because these feathers aren't perfect. They're always curved one way or another. And when you lay them in, you're going to have shorter and longer legs. And you can manipulate it once you get it tied in. But I guess I'm kind of old school. I'll just simply take and pull some fibers off the side. Tie them in, side, do the same thing on the other side. Just pull some fibers off. And kind of just do my best to try to get them about the same length on both sides of the hook. If anything, with the caddis, you want the legs pointing down a little bit, because a lot of times they'll even have legs, the real ones, legs underneath them. And so I like to preen them down just a little bit, clip the excess grouse. And then just finish with a little of the same dubbing. Sometimes what I'll do with this is mix a little bit, like I'll go ahead and finish with this dubbing like this, but I can't leave it alone usually, so I'll take some of that the brown UV ice dub, which I like so much, and dub some of that right over the front of this. I really am a big believer in contrast in a fly, and I think sometimes just a little simple contrast like this will get the grab where they might pass by without. So then just finish her up.
So here's an interest, maybe it's an observation of mine with quite a few of your patterns. Not many use anything other than the gold bead.
I've started using a lot more black beads.
Okay.
I started doing that when I went to start fishing New Zealand more, and those guys down there are huge black. They don't like bright beads.
Okay.
So I started using them, and I think that and years ago when I first came up with the micro maze, I use it. It's raining in here. It sounds like it's hailing out there.
Yeah, if it gets loud, there's a skylight above us.
And what I discovered is that I think that a lot of fish see a lot of gold beads, and it's sometimes if you're in a heavily hit fishery, the copper is a great choice as an alternate bead style. Black can be really good. I still use a lot of gold though. I'd say 50% of the time, 50% of my nymphs, I still prefer gold, and 50% I'll use black or copper. I'm not a big silver bead fan except for midge pupa. It's awesome for that.
Right.
And I can learn from other people. And it may be good for other things I haven't really tried yet. But a lot of gold, copper, and black. And like the nymph I came up with recently called the PT Prince, I use black. And I find that here in the lower sac, where they see a lot of gold, it's been really effective. And I think one thing is it's just a very dense profile, and it has tungsten beads on it. It goes down really quick, and don't need split shot. So
incredibly suggestive.
Very suggestive, and has kind of a glowing amber body, and some of the beauty of the Prince nymph in there too, and some of the best of the PT nymph. So yeah, it's been a really cool nymph. But the little Twistos have been fun for me because it's more of a technique than a fly, honestly. It's really just something you can use to do all kinds of flies with.
I'm going to zoom out.
Okay.
In case guys just want to maybe ask you a few questions.
Sure, absolutely.
Let's see. Look at this, guys. There's like a cameraman tonight.
I understand that that's usually everything guy.
Yeah. Aaron said, let's see. Bill comes in and he says, buggy awesomeness right there.
Oh man, I like him.
And Aaron says, down wings, down legs, I'm down with Mercer. What an awesome bug.
Yeah, these guys got to write my promo for me. These guys are awesome.
Yeah. Let's see. Matt Evers likes copper beads.
Yeah, copper's really good. Micro mayflies, that's the only way.
See, I've been getting into like some of the, I've showed you some of my more recent stuff.
With model beads.
With the model beads, or even the ones that look like jawbreakers.
Yep.
Like I remember just fishing PTs with a jawbreaker bead.
Absolutely. I'm definitely down for that. I think it looks more natural in the water. I mean,
yeah.
The draw of these standard brass beads, of course, is the air looking like air bubbles and stuff. And that's so good, but if a lower sac trout sees, enough of those, it's like after a while, it's like, and he sees something that looks like part of the bottom structure, but yet still like a nymph, he's going to jump on that thing. So I think that's really smart.
Yeah, I think it's really cool too, especially like you were talking about, like with your testing and everything like that, to go to a spot that, I mean, a lot of the spots like where you and I would walk in and wade fish, sneak in with the mask on so nobody sees us. But that's already had like maybe 10, 15 boats go through it sometimes in a day. Yeah. So it's a pretty cool proving ground.
It really is. Yeah, it's really good. I've learned a lot of it by sticking my head under the water over the years. It's pretty revealing. I remember one time with a little local creek I went to and looked in, and I've been fishing all day and nymphs and dries, and I've been catching some fish, but it wasn't good. And this was years ago. And I stuck my head in, I was like, oh my gosh, it was just seething with sculpin. I mean, like creepy numbers of sculpin. And so I put up like a number 4 olive woolly bugger. It's all I had with me, and just destroyed them the rest of the day. And so it's like, it is worth looking under the water. It really is. I mean, you can figure stuff out that you're just always just going to have to like postulate, just guess at otherwise. So,
right.
Yeah.
Let's see. Mike says it looks great. Cheech is heckling Aaron, which is good. And Rick asked a great question. He goes, would you ever like want to switch over, say off-colored, dark water into the day, use a darker bead to maybe silhouette more?
If your fly's high in a water column, absolutely. On the bottom, no, not so much. Actually, if anything, I would probably want a brighter bead in those conditions for the bottom. But absolutely, if you're fishing like a PT Prince and you're fishing with no weight, floating line, fishing in the top 3 feet of water, absolutely, that could make a difference. Yeah.
John loves the bottom or the furled body idea.
Oh, cool.
Jordan, you can definitely purchase these from the fly shop here.
Yep.
Mike actually individually hand signs them.
That's right.
Especially on a size 20. And Bill asked a great question.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're going to ask you a ton of questions.
That's fine.
I got you in the hot seat. He asked if you've ever used this furling technique on a dry fly.
Yeah, that's one of the first things I figured after I did the nymphs. I think, why wouldn't that make a great dry fly? And in fact, it does. But on little tiny dries, it's just too much, too bulky. It'll actually pull the fly down a little bit. So, but what I find, and it's a great question, what I find is in 12s, 14s, and 16, it makes really cool. And I'm actually coming out with some of those flies. That's actually he saw through it.
Well, it was interesting because you started doing this, and I saw that, and I'm like, oh, so I got some dry fly dub.
Absolutely.
And I did a extended body caddis pattern on just like a real short shank, almost an egg hook.
Yep.
So it's really nothing more than furled, super fine.
Yeah.
And like elk hair caddis one.
Yeah, just nothing. Yeah.
And it works.
Works good.
Maybe a little CVC, make it look real leggy.
And I like, but I like to his question. I really like to use a nymph dubbing on the dry flies because it will, for what I use it for, what I like. It collects water and kicks the back of that fly down even more, and it just looks alive. It holds so much water. Sometimes dry fly dressings, as perfect as they are for some things, are a little bit sterile. They hold up too high in a water column when I want a little more of a clink hammer, bend to the flies. So this same dubbing is good all the way down.
Mark asks, have you ever tried like the Twisto Caddis with a soft hackle?
No, never have. Makes sense though.
Because you have like your tungsten swing caddis.
Yeah, swing caddis. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe I'll try that. Thanks, Mark.
Clark says that you need a YouTube channel.
Oh man, people, I don't know if they're ready for that.
I'll set it all up for you.
Okay, yeah, that's how it would have to happen.
Jim asks, when's the next book?
I get asked that a lot, and the problem with that is that the publishers are going out of business left and right, and it's just that the book market has changed more to basic books or real high-end books, and so mine's kind of a tweener, and I hate to. I really like the way that the publisher did that book with the style of binding and stuff and the quality of paper, and it's hard to find anybody that will do that style anymore.
It's pretty labor intensive. I mean,
very labor intensive.
Step by step.
Yeah, it is a lot of high quality paper, and so maybe. I mean, I've got the patterns. I've already picked them out in my head. I know what I would do. Right. But we'll see. It is the whole process is pretty labor intensive, but it could be that just this sort of thing is a better deal. It might be a better idea. Some people like me still like books. I'm a real big book fan, but a lot of times I must admit when I want to see something, I go on to YouTube. Right. So it's like I don't pick up a book as much as I used to because a lot of the books just don't have what I need right now. But put a gun in my head, I take a book. It's pretty crazy.
So, kind of unrelated to fly fishing, but like you were talking about with publishers not doing stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Surfing Magazine.
Same thing.
One of the biggest surfing publications. I mean, I grew up in Southern California.
Right.
Done with print.
Done. It won't do anymore.
All online.
Yep.
So it's crazy that way.
There's something lost there, but it's understandable.
Right.
From a dollars and cents point.
Yeah. Rick asks, and this is a good question for you.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't. We found out the other day you haven't caught peacocks or the golden dorado yet.
Caught peacocks, no dorado.
Yeah. What are your favorite streamers?
Favorite streamers. That's a good question. What do I use the most? Just a stupid fly that I really find myself. No, that would be.